how do you and do Gen Z people link up religion and then Trump together?
I'm not going to say Gen Z is a completely Christian generation. Gen Z is remarkably spiritual because the speed at which information is relayed, you experience the information that it used to take years of human experience to get to.
Right.
We're getting that on Instagram Reels by the time we're 12. So you're brought to the moment where you choose despair or higher calling earlier than ever before. Earlier than ever before.
Trump has all these parallels to Jesus because he's persecuted, and then they want to throw him in jail, just like the Romans did to Jesus.
So there are so many people giving their souls to Trump. That's bad.
Why do you think religion and Jesus specifically is so good? And why do you think Trump is good too?
Trump is...
This always shocks me, but only 10% of the people that regularly listen to the show are actually subscribed. So before we begin, can I please ask for a quick favor? If you enjoy the show and what we do here, the best and totally free way to support us is just by hitting that subscribe button. And my commitment to you is that I'll bring you the best possible guests and the biggest stories every single week. Thank you.
So just to get some context around Jedediah, Jed had just this incredible insight, not just only on the election. What really shocked me was his ability to diagnose and have an overall picture about Gen Z. We're living in this time of an absence of meaning, of subjectivity. And personally, as myself, as a millennial, I've struggled with meaning. I've struggled with identity. And I think it's because I'm a generation that's shifting between old school media and consumption to new school internet. The younger generation know what they want and they see the life they want to live. And if you look at Gen Z around Trump, there was so many different supporters there, whereas my generation was protesting every second of the way.
Yeah.
And they're proud to go, hey, I'm a Trump supporter. Hey, I believe in these things. Hey, I believe in Jesus. You know, all these different values. I wanted you to share with the audience your feelings about Gen Z.
Just to map it a little bit, because you talked about your millennial generation and the difference between millennial and Gen Z. For millennials, there's so much hedonism and there's so much like materialism, and materialism leads you to a scientific atheism. But the thing that you see Gen Z reacting to, now Gen Z, I'm not going to say Gen Z is a completely Christian generation.
No.
We've got some work to do before that happens. But I will say Gen Z is remarkably spiritual. Gen Z is a spiritually in tune generation. For us, atheism is cringe. You know, you think of an atheist, you think of, you know, a Mountain Dew chugging,
Fedora hat.
Yeah, fedora hat, internet warrior. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the image in our heads.
Yeah.
So saying there is no God is cringe, and it's just, we know it's kind of just arrogance. We know there's something out there. We know there's something, worth living for. The thing that we do have is we have fascination with Scientology, horoscopes, manifesting, intuiting what the universe is about. And that kind of comes from us being at a crossroads earlier than any other generation. Because the speed at which information is relayed, you experience the, whatever you want to call it, trauma, life experience, information that it used to take years of human experience to get to.
Right.
We're getting that on Instagram Reels by the time we're 12, 13, 14. So you're brought to the moment where you choose despair or a higher calling earlier than ever before. Earlier than ever before. And with that, there's only one option that satisfies. It's putting your faith in Jesus. That's the only option where all of the questions of anxiety, of purpose, of joy get answered. But there's other things that seem like options, like despair or other forms of spirituality. But absence of God and arrogant intellectualism, you figure out that's not going to work incredibly quickly. And so what we have is a generation at a crossroads, and they're at a crossroads earlier than a generation usually should be, and there's a generation with remarkable opportunity. So I believe that Jesus is Lord, and I believe that because when I put my faith in Him, my life transformed. Like, I could tell you stories upon stories upon stories. And so because of that, my mission in life is to make His name known to my generation. When I look at the movement of it, where it's going, I get excited, because to look at this election and how that bears out on this election, this really was the first election that Gen Z could interact with. A lot of people were wondering what that was going to do, because, and obviously we know it went completely and totally red. Ideologically, that is conservative, that is traditional, and a Christian is going to vote red. We can argue about that later, but most people would agree that's going to be the movement. And what happens politically is so much more than just policy and ideological belief. It is a litmus test for the pulse of the culture. And it wasn't just a narrow Trump victory. Like, it's projected that he is going to have won by over 4 million votes, popular vote, and almost 100 electoral votes. And both houses of our legislature are going red.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a shift. And what does this mean? This means more than just we want to take the fluoride out of our water, we want to be taxed less, and we don't want to go to war. This is, we want values that are older. We want values that are immovable. Because the biggest thing that Gen Z is facing is the plasticity of truth. My truth, your truth, our truth, their truth. Truth is no longer an authoritative bedrock to live on. And Gen Z is longing for something that isn't momentary, that doesn't fade. And God obviously is eternal, but also traditional values of getting a wife, getting a home, getting a job, getting a purpose, and living not for yourself, but for your neighborhood.
Yeah.
That is something that can stand up to water. But living for, anime figurines, living for fast food, that's not going to satisfy. It's going to look sad.
Yeah.
And so I see that ideological shift in politically, ideologically. I see a generation that is spiritually hungering. And so the thing I'm praying for, and the thing I think we can expect, is a spiritual revival akin to the Great Awakening of the 1700s in America. And I think that's not just going to be good for Christianity, that's going to be good for everybody, even non-Christians, because a nation that has faith in God is a nation that functions better. Those are citizens that are better citizens and love each other and look out for each other. Why would I take pity on and give charity to my fellow man if he's not a image bearer of God? That's what endows people with value.
Yeah.
When we take that out, people no longer have value. We no longer value anything. We hate our country. We hate ourselves. And we live in miserable, squalor.
I wanted to go back to something you just said.
Yes.
So you said, truth has this plasticity. What do you mean by that?
Right. So that all takes root in individualism. We've just established that Gen Z wants to live in a community. They don't want to be isolated. Loneliness is at an all-time high. That's because at the turn of the century, and this has roots in the Enlightenment, we decided it's me, me, me. America's going to be a me culture. I want to be successful. I want to be popular. Even if I'm in a relationship, I want the person who is best for me. It's me, me, me. We don't love our fellow man. We don't love others. Because of that, now I'm not getting my meaning, my purpose, or my moral values from outside of me. I'm looking within for everything. And when I look within, I'm completely beholden to my emotions and my circumstances. So I become completely reactionary in all of my beliefs, all of my values, and all of my actions.
Right.
Because of that, I don't have morals that are just solid. I have morals that change day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute, based on how I'm feeling, how I'm thinking, and what's happening to me. That's why it makes total sense why a person would say, I feel like a woman today. Or for a person to self-diagnose themselves with depression when they really don't have something clinical. Clinical depression's a real thing. But I'm going to be quicker to say I have anxiety or depression if I feel anxious in this moment.
Right.
And so now you have a plastic culture. And a plastic culture, plastic morals aren't viable. They aren't workable. You need something that doesn't change if you're going to know who you are and what you're about. And that's just across the board psychologically. But I make the argument that the only morals that don't change are the ones written in the book from ancient times that God dictated on tablets, right? In order for you to have, because we're just moving the envelope. If you're going to just your neighbors, it's like, okay, this is what I'm going to live by. Well, most of the time, a man wrote that. And even then, if it's just originating in a man, then it's going to be plastic. So I'm going to make the argument that you need to put your faith in God, faith in Jesus, to have a concrete belief structure because it's so outside of you. Literally another plane of existence that understands you and your circumstances better than you ever will. When you look at morality, it's interesting. A lot of people view Christianity as just a list of rules for me to measure up to.
100% they do.
The reason that's not right is when you actually look at God's rules for your life, they're for your benefit. When God says don't sleep around, what happens when you sleep around? Your emotional and social bonds are bad and you catch STDs. When God says don't drink too much, you can still drink, right? But don't drink, because when you drink too much, you get in a car accident and kill kids and your life is ruined. Don't murder, they're going to lock you up forever. All of God's commands make sense logically. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, I'm going to make the spiritual argument, but you can make the pragmatic argument too. God is the only giver of meaning of life that makes sense when played out. And Gen Z wants that.
Yeah. It's really interesting when you sum it all up and then you have a return to like a structure or a set of rules. And I think when people hear the word rules, they think, oh, it's restrictive, or oh, it's control, you know. And it's something that personally I have gone in and out of with religion.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I was like, okay, this is God, there's this thing out there. And then I got older and I was rebellious and I was a teen, and in my early 20s, I thought it was just a system of control until I've had different experiences that have shaped me in different ways. But I think it's interesting what you bring up about this plasticity and looking inwards. And then when you look inwards all the time and you have this idea of vanity or this idea of narcissism, and you see it all the time, everyone's got their phones out, they're constantly doing this sort of thing, right? And, you know, and our generation is told we're special, but we're going to be these big things, there's these changes in this world, right? And then when you're living impulsively moment to moment on your emotions, then you can't get a barometer on where your morals and where you align. And I think that's why my generation is so lost and confused and angry. And we have all this division, and we have dating apps that are at an all-time high, and we're so lonely and disconnected. And oh, this person's a Trump supporter, I hate them. Oh, this person is a feminist, I don't want to talk to her. All these different labels and sides and tribalism are like hyper advanced, where you know, negating or like, you know, navigating, I should say, a like social interactions is like, what do they believe in? Oh, they believe in this. Okay, I can't say this, I can't say that. Okay, there's this thing, there's that thing. And then you're just constantly in this like anxious haze of trying to communicate and connect. And it's so prevalent in and especially in my generation. So when you say that, like a return to tradition, a return to these moral structures that everyone can kind of like see and align with, then it makes things so much easier to all kind of get along. You know?
And one problem that both millennials and Gen Z has is identity. We're a culture obsessed with identity.
Correct.
Vain identity. Who am I? And we look for ourselves for that identity. And the reason that Christianity is going to be difficult to swallow is also the reason why Gen Z is going to understand what it takes to be a Christian better than any other generation. Because when I say I put my faith in Jesus, what you're doing is my identity is now completely found in him. My identity, my trajectory, my ambition, my wants and my needs are all bound up in the character and personhood of Jesus Christ. That's a tough pill to swallow because our generation is one that says, who are you? Who do you want to be? Be true to yourself. And for us to take on Christ means we're giving that up. And that's very difficult. But the reason it's worth it is the reason we're anxious, the reason we're depressed, the reason we're lonely is because we're taking on all this responsibility of figuring out who I am, what I'm about, what I'm going to do, when we as humans were never designed to answer those questions. We're going to decide, who am I? What does my name mean? What am I going to do? What is my dream? Who am I? That's not for us to decide. That's for God to tell you. That's for Jesus to be. And so when you take on Jesus, when you surrender to him and say, I'm going to be a servant, maybe I'm going to be a slave to Jesus, that's harsh language. The upshot is, I can tell you with honesty, I'm never anxious about anything anymore. I can tell you with honesty, I have joy no matter what, because it's found in him. It's not found in me anymore. So that's why I believe Gen Z is going to have a struggle accepting Jesus, but they're going to know what that means in a way that older generations never understood. Because older generations were told from their community who they are. Now we're telling ourselves en masse. So now we know for us to listen to what Jesus says about us, it's all or nothing.
Well, that as well, and especially establishment has been completely eroded.
Completely.
You know? And that includes media. You know, like look at this election, how podcasts have dominated everything, and you know Kamala Harris and that side, you know, just stuck to traditional scripted events, and it didn't work out for them. And Gen Z, millennials, yes, we're very not political aware, but podcast aware.
Yes.
But Gen Z is all about podcasts, all about short form clips, all about sharing around. So when you have that all out there, then it becomes a lot clearer as to what things you like and what things you believe, but also I think you understand the other side so much more than you did before. So when you have that, it's so much clearer for an identity versus the community says this, and then my generation's like, but we don't want to be that community, but we have the community still saying you need to be this thing. There's still this old traditional things in place, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, because we haven't got much time today. So Trump.
Yes.
Trump's a flawed character. Trump has all these things that are definitely not Christian values, but then he's on that side, and there's definitely a number of people in the traditional Republican Party that are on that side as well. So how, like, do you and do Gen Z people link up religion and then Trump together and then this movement? Like, how does this all coalesce together?
That's an excellent question, because Trump is not a godly man. Yeah. I'll be the first to say that, no matter how, like, I support him and love the guy because he's hilarious. But the thing with him is he needs to be president, right? Kamala Harris, there's corporations that need her to be president to survive. Trump, if he didn't win this election, they'd shoot him or they'd throw him in jail. Yeah. He knows the stakes are high for him. Yeah. And to do that, he needs us as Christians. And so there's kind of a symbiotic relationship there. And I have no naivete about that. But I know that he's going to act on those things. Yeah. And for me, it's like he's surrounded by people who believe what I believe. He's surrounded by people who have, like Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, is legit. I like that guy. J.D. Vance, legit Catholic. Love that guy. Amazing guy. He's surrounded by those people. Yeah. That's his team. Yeah. RFK's a Catholic too. And so he is going to act in the way that's best for this country. Okay. At the end of the day, I've got the big picture in mind. I know it's bigger than like what seat it is. It's what's that seat going to do. I've got the big picture of like the movement and direction of this country moving to a place where it could have revival, facilitating the atmosphere for that. Right. Trump's the best option for that. Like it's clear that Kamala, the rally, somebody goes, Jesus is Lord. She goes, you're at the wrong rally.
Yeah, she screwed up big time saying that.
So I think Christians will be quick to say, we don't agree with Trump wholeheartedly. In fact, there's many things he does that we're disgusted by. But be that as it may, we know where the country will go. And if with Trump in office, the country's going to a place where Jesus can be more easily praised, be more easily accepted, and more easily understood. But I think we as Christians have a duty to say, as much as we like what Trump is doing, as much as what Trump is saying is helpful, that we don't align ourselves completely with him. And he doesn't align himself completely with us. He'll be the first to say, he'll tell you he's not a Christian. But it's got to be a coalition, because I think we as Christians have become so tribalistic. There's so many Christian Protestants who hear you're a Catholic, and even though we worship the same Jesus and believe the same things, will be like, well, you eat communion different. Okay. And I'm like, that's going to kill us. That's another thing that Christianity needs to get over. It's just Jesus. If you believe in Jesus and put your faith in him, it doesn't matter what your church looks like. It doesn't matter what translation of the Bible you read. It means that you read the Bible and you believe in Jesus.
Yeah, it's interesting. Have you ever seen that South Park episode where there's all the atheists?
No.
Have you seen it? You should watch it. It's really good. So they think that religion's this evil thing, so they remove religion completely and they go to the future. Yeah. And you know what happens?
What?
So they have these atheists, right? Yeah. And they have like, I'm an atheist, but I don't like blue shirts. And I'm an atheist, but I like red shirts. And I'm an atheist and I like blue and red shirts. And they all start wars and fighting and killing each other. Yeah. And it just becomes this same thing with like different religions and different interpretations. So it's like, in the absence of religion, it's still the same thing. It's going to happen regardless of you saying it.
Absolutely. And I think you see that in wokeism. Yeah. That's a religion.
Yeah, you do.
We have patron saints. We have rules. We have things you should say and shouldn't. We have events you go to. But it's all of that without the divine. Without Jesus. And the thing about religion, take away all of religion's practices and holidays and movements. It's like Jesus is enough. I know people who are completely apart from organized church, and I believe you need organized church. It helps in a big way. But Jesus is a person and a way of life, the way, the truth, and the life that is just like the thing that sets religion apart with all of the other religions of man and thought is it has a connection to something real and true that transcends this plane. And it's a power that can raise a man from the dead, you know? And so I completely agree. We as humans need a tribe. We need a religion. But there's only so much you can do with that. Yeah. At the end of the day, you need to buy into what your divine nature is screaming for.
Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. So let me play the devil's advocate, right?
Absolutely.
So I've been to all these Trump rallies, right?
Right.
And I've met some really charged people that are like really passionate about Trump, and there's been a lot of like religious connections about the assassination attempt. And
I want to break some of those down.
Okay.
And go against some of them.
Okay.
Because I think So
I've got two things for you. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
But I think I understood the first one. As Christians, we believe that God works everything out for good.
Okay.
We as people, because he gave us free will, he gave us free will so that we can love him truly. That also means we can sin truly.
Yeah.
And God is kind of having to work with our messed up decisions and redeem them. And I believe that God puts people in power. But just because God puts someone in power doesn't mean that they're going to heaven. Do you know what I mean? God will put bad leaders in charge because he will, because people are evil. Do you know what I mean? And he's going to redeem that and save people and make, witness for it. So when people say that Trump's the Messiah, when people say that Trump is the chosen one.
This is what I want to talk about,
Yeah, he's the chosen one, but so was Mussolini, right? God chose him for a specific purpose. And God might be choosing Trump to lead for a great purpose. But we can't get confused about what God choosing you means. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is why I wanted to follow on this question, right? So just before I met you, I was in this, I went to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to find the nearest Trump party just to capture what was going on.
Yeah, crazy day.
Yeah, it was, right? And then I met this woman, and then she was talking to me, and she was very religious, and she was talking about all these different things with Trump. And then she said, you know what? Trump has all these parallels to Jesus because he's persecuted. And then they want to throw him in jail, and they decried him. It's just like the Romans did to Jesus. And I was like, okay, I can kind of see that, Jesus was spoken down to and cast aside, and all these different persecutions and suffering you have to go through to get the position he is, right? But I was just curious. I was like, at first I was like, okay, this is too strong, to be this with this language you're saying to me. But then I thought about it more. I'm like, do you think that's a fair comparison in terms of connecting the dots? Because she's not saying that, she's not saying Trump is Jesus, but she's just saying that he's going through this persecution and God chose him for this reason to do these different things. You know what I mean? So I was curious for someone that's more, would you say you're evangelical?
That term is really complicated. I would just say I'm a Christian.
Just a Christian.
I would say I'm a Christian.
So I want to say, because you're the pure, very pure, right?
I'm going to this school for biblical studies.
Okay.
I speak fluent ancient Greek.
Wow.
I translate the manuscripts.
Wow.
So, and also your English Bible, it matches the Greek. ESV, NIV, trust it. I read ancient Greek. It's legit.
So yeah, you've got a very, you're 19, but you're still very worldly and very studied already. So you can give me a good interpretation on what you think about this situation.
Yeah. Drawing parallels to Jesus of your own life is good. Because Christian means little Christ. We're supposed to, we're supposed to mimic him as closely as possible. And we are supposed to relate with his sufferings. If I'm persecuted and talked down for my faith, which has happened, I can take heart and say, well, this happened to Jesus too. Jesus says, take heart, I've overcome the world. So in that way, and you can even see Jesus' story is the ultimate story. The king who was hated and then raised high.
Right.
And so the best stories, Trump's story is poetic and compelling. So of course it would mirror Jesus' story of wanting to be thrown in prison and all those things, and yet still triumphing. And I think drawing that parallel is fine. It's all about why you're doing it. Because if you're drawing that parallel to try to get me to vote for him, I don't like that as much. If you're drawing that parallel because you're observing the world and you're so interesting and it's pointing to Jesus of look, we see this great story playing out. Trump's story is the number one story in the world right now. It reminds me of the greatest story of all time. That's great. And I would do that. And I would agree. It's really close. But if you're doing it for Trump, then you're making this election not about electing a leader, not about electing a guy who will do the right thing in office, but electing a Messiah. And I'm never going to vote for a Messiah. We should never vote for a Messiah because we're going to be let down. And nobody can take that weight.
I hear you. And this is the thing I wanted to push back against. Not because I don't agree with you, but just to give the audience a bit of perspective, right?
Absolutely. I love it.
So take religion out of this, right?
Take it out.
Let's just take out tribes and politics.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I've struggled, especially because the millennial thing we talked about, this plasticity, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be part of a group,
right?
Because I think this thing is called a shit theory, right? So it's you have this political idea communism,
right?
It's all about fairness, equality, we get everything together, everything's great. And then people join that group that have their own narcissistic or just their
They're
own.
bringing their own trash.
Correct. Same as feminism. There's women that like, equality, fairness. I'm like, oh, great. But then there's women in there that they've had this bad time, and now every guy's an asshole. Everyone's evil. All these things, and it's the same thing you see throughout any political movement, right?
It happens in religion a lot too.
Exactly,
Religion's not safe from it.
It's kind of like making a pie or like food, and then there's like flies that go into it, and you go, but these things aren't what it is, right?
Right.
And I just think about, just coming back to this parallel, because I've met fanatical Trump supporters, and I met people that have way more leveled and balanced like yourself, all across the different spectrum. And then I feel like there's this vibe where some of them kind of represent this cultish kind of atmosphere towards it. You know what I mean? And then there's other people that are way more balanced. Like, this isn't a slew against them because Trump won the popular vote. It's obviously a sign across the country that that's what they want. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I just wanted to like kind of bring that to you and then hear what you kind of think about this aspect.
They're making him a religion. And it's like, obviously I've said the only thing that can hold you putting your whole soul into it is Jesus. So there are so many people giving their souls to Trump, giving all of their energy to Trump. And those are the fanatics you're seeing.
Yes.
That's bad. That's
that's
bad.
That's what I say sometimes.
And I see it too.
You know what I mean?
And I'll say to them is, it's like, I like Trump, but there's only so much of yourself you can give another flawed human being.
Yeah.
And that's true across the board.
Still a human being.
And like, that's what I say. Like when people will see, it's like, oh, you're against me being a homosexual because God hates me. And I'm like, no, I'm just against that because that's now your whole identity. And that's the same thing I say to Trump supporters. It's like, now this is everything about you. When someone thinks of you, they think Trump supporter, right? That's not enough to hold your whole identity. We're just changing the script. And it's like, we can do that with good stuff all the time. It's like, oh, I'm a foodie. You're just like, I love food. It's what I spend my life, but it's not my whole life.
And for some people it is, dude.
Exactly.
That's the truth.
And it's tragic.
That's what I'm saying.
And it's tragic even when it's Trump. Even when it's the funniest, coolest president we've ever had. It's still sad. And you sense it. And even people who are fanatical about something sense it in others are like, oh, you're really into Disney World. I have annual passes.
You're from Orlando.
To Disney World.
You're from Orlando.
I went to Disney World every Friday. Elementary school. But if somebody says, I'm a Disney adult,
it's a lot, though. It's a lot.
It's a lot.
I see them. I'm from Australia, right? And I see them online. I'm a Disney adult. I've got no kids. I go every weekend. Dude. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird, dude.
Cringe.
It's weird.
Gen Z thinks that's so
It's super cringe.
It's super cringe.
Yeah. But this is the thing, though. This is what we're talking about. It all kind of links back together because when you have an absence of meaning, you create an identity like, I'm a foodie, I'm a Disney adult,
humans need that. And it's like, I'm not big into groups. I think the minute Christianity becomes an exclusive club, we completely miss the point. It's a way of life that everyone ought to find. And it's like, it's the only one that works. And so it's like, the thing I would, and we can wrap this up soon. The thing that I would say to Gen Z is, it's like, you have a choice to make, right? You have an identity to fill. And there's a million options, but none of them fulfill you. Not only do none of them give you meaning, but none of them can you wear on your sleeve and not be cringe. Jesus is the identity. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. You can search forever, but everything will come up short. He's the one that fulfills. Luckily, I found him early. That's a huge blessing to me. And I think it's a blessing to Gen Z that we understand this question as early as we do. But put it in him. Make him the banner. Because it's like, Trump can't do it. Disney World can't do it. Nothing can fill it.
Well, this is what kind of final question I wanted to ask you, and let you have an extended platform on. So like we've been talking about, absence of meaning, technology everywhere, short form, long form. There's voices, there's noise, there's so many things in the world, right? And this Trump has become president now, and you're talking about religion and Gen Z, and I'm talking about my generation, millennial generation being lost and confused and angry. But what I wanted to ask you, and maybe you can address the people here, is like, when you hear all this criticism against religion or Trump, what are things that you think you hold strong, but other people think are bad or evil or whatever interpretation they have, right? What advice do you have for Gen Z, for millennials, for people that are kind of lost along the world, that are trying to find meaning, and like, why do you think religion and Jesus specifically is so good? And why do you think Trump is good too? Like just linking all that together as a big kind of idea, because we haven't got much time, and we'll have another podcast to talk more further in detail. Just want to put that all out there, just so the audience can hear this, because there might be people that are like, this is too out there, too extreme for me to hear all these different things. I want you to have your own sort of a space to explain that.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So Trump is great, and he's a means to an end, because Trump has a job. Everybody has a job. The baker needs to be a great baker, yada, yada, yada. He's going to be a good president. And the president has a lot of influence to change the country and facilitate ideological, cultural, spiritual movements.
Yeah.
So Trump is good. It's good that we elected Trump because of what he's going to do to this country. And that's where it ends. I'm going to watch his press conferences. I'm going to listen to his speeches, and I'm going to love him for what he is. He's a president. And I think it's great that he's president. But now we can't put our faith in Trump. We can't find our identity in Trump. And the question remains, where are we going to go? Where are we going to find it? What are we going to do?
Correct.
Like I said, there's a million options. Jesus is the one. Here's why. Jesus is the only option. And I hate that I even use that word, because I don't even think there are options. It's just Jesus or confused, wasted time. The reason that Jesus is different is Jesus is the only thing in this world that tells you, I am something to be counted on. You can lay everything on me. Jesus is the only thing that can bear that weight, because he's the only person who asks you to put that weight on him. No matter what you're putting your identity in, whether it be video games, whether it be Trump, whether it be, a political ideology, whether it be a hobby, okay? None of those things told you, make me the center of your life. Rock climbing never said that. Trump never even said that. Was there a person more full of himself? Trump never even told you that. He just said, I'm going to be the best at the job. Whatever the thing that your title is, it's not strong enough to bear the weight of your soul. But Jesus says, I am the way. I am the truth. I am your whole life. Believe in me. Make me your identity. Make me your title. Make me the reason you get up out of bed. And so he's the only thing that you can find this in, and he's the only thing strong enough to carry it. And just to talk about my testimony of that, I'm telling you, it's legit. I'm telling you, it's the real deal. Because I read in Romans, the book of Romans, God says this really strong word of just surrender your whole life to me. Link yourself completely to me. Find everything in me. And that rocked my world. I grew up in church, but then I was like, holy smokes, he's asking a lot more out of me. Am I willing to give that? And then I did. Now I'm telling you, if you're struggling with anxiety, I was an anxious person, zero anxiety. I don't have to worry about what the future holds, because I know he holds my future. And now even terrible things that happen to me, I know he's doing them to build my character, so I can find safety in him. A lot of you are struggling with depression, okay? I have joy no matter what. I'm never sad anymore. Ask my buddies and friends. They'll tell you, I'm never sad anymore, because my joy is not built on circumstances. It's not built on how my day goes. My joy comes from the fact that I can meditate on being written in the book of eternal life. I'm going to live forever with God. That's true joy. So now it's my car gets towed. The hot girl says she doesn't like me. All that doesn't matter, because Jesus says, you're mine. So I'm accepted and nothing bad can happen to me. I get shot 2 minutes from now. I know where I'm going. I'm not worried. All of the things our generation is struggling with, anxiety, depression, lack of meaning, lack of identity, all of those are questions that Jesus answers. And so you can literally, I'm never going to force anybody to believe it, but I'm telling you, you can try to find that meaning and that substance and that strength in a billion places. But at the end of the day, Jesus is the only thing that tells you he can carry it, and is the only one that's going to make good on that promise. And we as Christians have been sheepish about that for a long time, but I'm going to tell you with confidence that if you seek God with all of your heart, not dipping your toe in, not be like, maybe. If you commit to reading your Bible consistently, praying consistently, and coming at it from a place of, I'm not seeking this for my own good, I'm seeking God because he's God and he deserves it, you will find everything you need and want and more in this life.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This always shocks me, but only 10% of the people that regularly listen to the show are actually subscribed. Can I please ask for a quick favor? If you enjoy the show and what we do here, the best and totally free way to support us is just by hitting that subscribe button. And my commitment to you is that I'll bring you the best possible guests and the biggest stories every single week. Thank you.